None of your business.
See, that's the right answer right there. None of your business.
Just,
You have to tell him you're scrolling. Don't let Roger punk you like that.
Just mind your business, bro.
That's right. Because if you mind your business, you won't have time to be minding mine. Right.
So my son's out there putting up lights, and my wife's putting up lights as well. So I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go in and record. She's like, seriously? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, that's fine. The slaves will be out here putting up lights on your house.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Dude,
I was like,
we did that this morning. We got out and I got up on the roof. Well, I got up on the roof part over our front porch to hang our lights. I didn't get up on we don't hang them any higher than that because I'm not getting up higher than that because the pitch is obviously a lot higher on our house. Once you get into the upper levels, and yeah, man, my bones they're brittle at this age. So I don't. And everybody remembers Jerry coming in, to work with his leg all busted up in a cast and him on crutches. And it's like, dude, what happened to your leg? He was like, oh, I was hanging Christmas lights, and he fell off his ladder. It's like, bro, nope.
Dude, that's why I have my son do it. So like most of ours, and you guys have been to my house, most of ours is pretty low, but we had the one piece right over the front door that goes up. And so we had to bring out the extended ladder. And so I put my boy up there. He's like, well, I got to do this. I'm like, well, one, I weigh about 70 pounds more than you do. So, I get on there and the ladder starts bending. I'm like, yeah, this is not going to end well. And then two, I'm like, hey, look, plus you get up there. I'm down here, on belay. So if you're going to fall, just jump. I can catch you. It's like, you can't catch me. You're just going to let me hit the ground. So.
Not like that. I would just be like, because you will heal quicker. That's why you're up there and not me.
Well, and he's all nimble and flexible and everything. Like he he's like a little squirrel, man. He gets up the ladder, gets up there, and he's bending backwards. And I'm like, yeah, no, not me. Because every step I take, that thing bends just a little bit more. And I'm like, it says it's rated to like 300 pounds. I'm like, is it really rated to 300 pounds? And maybe it was rated to 300 pounds when I bought it 20 years ago. I don't know that it's retained its tensile strength, over the last 2 decades.
that aluminum's been out in the sun for a while. Like, man, like the tensile strength is degraded. I don't know if it can survive another trip of me up that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, we knocked that out. And of course it seems like every year, when we go to hang Christmas lights, it's always hot. And I'd say, hot. It was like 60 degrees today, but the sun. The way our house faces, the sun beats on the the front of the house all day long, and so the shingles over the front porch. Like I get up there and I crawl out, one of my daughter's bedroom's window to crawl out on there and hang up lights, and the shingles are like surface of the sun hot, and so my ass is burning the whole time, and. And I'm like, dude, this does not feel like Christmas. Like a couple of weeks ago, it was like 35 degrees, but no, not today. Not today. The shingles had to be cooking today. So
you will legit get sunburnt out in front of my house right now because just the way the sun is, it just beats on it. You just sit up there and I mean, it's nice. It's like 70 degrees. So the weather itself, temperature wise, is fine, but the sun just beats you down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, man, we're all decorated inside too. I put up my little Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
I know, I see that, man. All festive and everything. Heck yeah,
man. Gotta get it. Christmas, hey, dude, this is my favorite time of year. Thanksgiving, Christmas, is definitely my favorite time.
Because you get to have like second and third dinners. Is that why?
Well, because I get to have second and third dinners, and then I can wear like hoodies and big puffy jackets that hide my fat, right? And so. Because I got to do something. You and Luke always picking on me because I'm always having a snack.
Dude, you eat a lot, man.
Dude, I have breakfast.
You eat often, not a lot. You eat often.
Okay, so I have breakfast, then I have a mid-morning snack, I have lunch, I have an afternoon snack, and then I have dinner.
I don't think it's the fact that you start recording.
Hey, so welcome to the show, Luke. We've been recording for the last 6 minutes.
I'm used to it being in the middle because my mind is gone. Okay, so Josh, Jesus. It's not that you eat so often; it's that you every time you announce it so often. Look, I'm eating. I'm eating dinner. I'm having a snack.
Well, that's the only time. That's the only time you guys want to do something or talk to something. You're like, hold up, let's let's do something between 6 and like 7 Eastern Standard Time when most people are eating dinner. I don't know. Oh, Josh is eating dinner. That fat ass. I can't believe he's eating dinner. He's always eating dinner. I was like, dude, I always eat dinner right around the same time. And that's when y'all are like, Warzone. Record. I'm like, what?
When Josh's kids are out of the house, that fool will be eating at 4:30 and going to bed at 6:30. You bet. Because the only reason he's not doing that now is because of the kids. They'd be like, "Yeah, no, we can't eat that early." But
well, they're just getting home from school at 4:30. Yeah, man. So we gotta shove that off to the right a little bit.
God.
Well, you know what? Though? I mean, once the kids leave or they get old enough, like we don't have set times to eat. We just like, hey, if I'm hungry, I go eat. You know, but if you guys didn't have the if you didn't practice the daylight savings time, you could shift that hour, and we could be outside of your eating window. So, did you like that transition right over to Luke about daylight savings times?
Let's go with Josh. Did you read the article?
So unfortunately, I did read the article, and I completely agree with Roger. I have to practice daylight savings time, because I'm white, and there's no other way I can keep the man down, except through structural racism built into daylight savings time, as that article, laid out.
So it was foxnews.com. I haven't read the article. I'm opening it up. Okay, insists CNN article. So it's off of a CNN article. So
yeah,
CNN, it's the old saying, asteroid to impact Earth and kill all civilization. People of color impacted most. It's like, okay, so that article is saying that daylight savings time disproportionately impacts communities of color, insists CNN article. And I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read the article. But this came out when, Josh? This article...
it was fairly recent.
Yeah. So this article from Fox News was the 26th. So that's today. It was published the 26th. I don't know when the CNN, but I'm assuming it was recent. Josh sends that to us today, and I'm like, okay, this is why I stopped writing satire. For a little while, I was writing, pro bono for a Facebook site. It's like it's the dollar store version of Babylon Bee. It's like Wish.com, Babylon Bee, called NPC Daily. And they had some funny stuff. And I'm like, man, I can write satire. I'm pretty good at that. But it's just not fun anymore. It's not fun to write satire. Number one, people don't get it. Josh gets trolled at least once a week on Twitter by a satire site or somebody posting satire, which we'll get into in a minute. But in March of 2019, when I was writing for NPC Daily, I wrote an article with the headline, "It's time to admit that daylight savings time is an instrument of the patriarchy and inherently racist. Here's why." With the subheadline, "If you've ever set your clocks forward or back at any time during the last century, you've contributed to the victimization of billions." And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll read a couple of paragraphs about midway through. Simply put, the population circling the equator is made up largely of people with high levels of melanin in their skin. In other words, they're persons of color. These populations determined long ago that daylight savings time is a weapon of oppression wielded by whites and their corporate patriarchal gods. For generations, brave equatorial warriors have banished daylight savings time to the ash heap of anachronistic tools of oppression, and they will not go back. I mean, it's the most ridiculous. It's posted on the Culper's Canteen Cup page. It's ridiculous because I was just pulling stuff out of the air saying it's racist and saying that daylight savings time, more people when you fall back, and this is a fact, when you fall back, there are more automobile accidents. It spikes up like quite a bit, and when you spring forward, automobile accidents go down by like 1% nationwide. And I was like, well, that's a good thing, because the more people die, the more white drivers die on the road, the better. It's just that. I'll post it on the site. You guys can read it and laugh at it. But it's like, satire is no longer fun, dude. It's not fun because it comes true. And it's ridiculous. Think of the most ridiculous headline you can think of. Woke headline. And I guarantee you'll see it within 6 months somewhere from a quote unquote legit news site. It's just dumb, man. It's not fun.
Well, and I read the article that Josh posted, or that he sent to us from CNN, and basically what it said was black people have more health problems, and when you do anything to mess with people's, body rhythms and this and that, that they are impacted more just because they have more health problems. That's what it all boiled down to. So you have more health problems, so no matter what you do, it's going to affect you more. Therefore, it's racist.
Well, you know why the white man insists on daylight savings time, right? You know? Because without
Because
daylight savings time, sunlight absorbed through the skin will trigger massive vitamin D synthesis in the skin, thereby causing a darkening of the skin. Uh, the logical and university educated reader will clearly see that over time, the population of persons of color will radically increase, perhaps even over 2 generations. So the white man doesn't want any more people of color in this world. And if, obviously, if there's daylight savings time, you're going to get more sun, right? That's how it works. Follow the science.
right.
I hate daylight savings time, by the way. I think it's stupid. Josh?
I think it's completely unnecessary at this point. I think it served a purpose. When they came up with it, but I think now it serves no purpose. So I'll use because why was daylight savings time? Why they come up with it to begin with?
Farmers.
Right? And so it was farmers. And so if we can ever get Brandon, who one of our listeners out in Kansas, on the show, he's a legit farmer, and he's running his combine. His combine is guided by GPS, right? He's got to be in it, but he basically has, and Brandon, feel free to hit us up, on social media, and correct me if I'm wrong, but dude, that combine basically got like airplane landing lights on it, right? So he can see everywhere he's going in the dark. He doesn't, it doesn't need to be daytime for him to run that thing, to harvest. And that goes for, a lot of the farm equipment these days. It doesn't need to be during hours of, light to do it. They can do a lot of that stuff during periods of darkness.
Same with summer break, Josh. Summer break is anachronistic too. The reason there's a summer break is because of farming in school.
Yeah. And so I just think that we could do away with it because it does. It truly serves zero purpose these days.
When they tried, right? They voted and they passed it in the Senate on that. Like nobody was there. And so wasn't it? Who actually called the vote? I forget who called the vote.
Rubio? Was it Rubio?
No, I think he was totally against it. It was.
Was he? What a.
Yeah, I think it was a female senator. She's like, we're going to call a vote because it's some weird law. It's like, hey, you just have to have like a majority of the people that are actually present and in term or something like that.
Yeah, to have a quorum. Well, the thing is they brought it up in the middle of, I forget what was going on, but it was like, it was in the middle of true chaos, and it didn't get a lot of support. One, because a lot of people didn't care about it, and two, also it was like, hey, basically, the country is literally falling apart right now. And you guys are, going to spend the next 6 hours talking about daylight savings time. And everybody's like, no, absolutely not.
Rubio was for it. I'm reading.
Oh, is he? Okay, I may get mixed up. I remember there were several GOP senators that had some serious heartache over it.
He sponsored it. I don't know. I don't know who called the vote. I can't find that.
I don't know. It's always demoralizing in the spring when we lose an hour, though. Man,
Did you guys ever, like when you were in your younger years, 23, 24, whatever, go to a bar the night of fall back and it stayed open another hour? That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
I was also on duty a couple times when it went back an hour, and I'm like, this sucks.
Oh yeah, man. You're like, I got an extra hour of staff duty.
You got a 13-hour shift.
That's terrible. Yeah, we went to I forget what year it was. It was early on. There was a bar in Fayetteville. It was over by Methodist University called Double Bogies, and we went there one night. It was daylight. We were falling back, and it was the usual suspects, and we were over there, and they stayed open an extra hour, so we got an extra hour before last call, and
Speaking of extra hours, quick Thanksgiving story. Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. We sure did. It was we hosted some family at our house, and it was nice. But we we had some kids. When I say kids, I mean my nieces and nephews were over here, and they played some games. Some board games after everybody had eaten, and we're watching sports. They're in there playing some board games, and they played one called Linky. Have you guys heard of that? Linky. Basically, you have to,
Yeah.
they read 4 questions, and you get the answer on the questions, and you find a link between the answers to the questions, right? So one question may be, who was Peter Pan's nemesis? Captain Blank, Hook. Okay. The other one is, another name for an injection is a what? Jab. Okay. And then the third one would be like, when school is out, the blank rings, or the blank something. I'm screwing this up, but the answer would be ring. So hook, jab, ring, boxing. That's the link. I was knocking it out of the park in this game, man. I was just rocking it. I mean, I'd get it sometimes after the first one. I'm like, oh, that link is this, and they were getting all mad at me. And one of my family members said, the only reason you're good at this game is because you're old. So it called me old, man. I was like, man, is that really it? I'm good at this because I'm old? I don't know. But Linky's fun, man. Because I'm good at it.
I mean, we are old, though.
Any stories from Thanksgiving? Anything interesting?
No, we had so it was just us. My parents weren't really in health, good health to travel up, and my dad's back and forth between my sister's house and his house with doctor's appointments, everything, and then my wife's dad went up to her sister's and brother-in-law's place for Thanksgiving because he hadn't seen them and he hadn't seen that side of the family in a little while, so he went up there. So it was just us, man. No, the wife and kids got in there. They knocked out a big spread, and everybody was fat and happy. But other than that, didn't turn on the TV. Didn't watch 1 minute of woke NFL football. Didn't watch anything. I didn't watch the World Cup. Nothing.
He's not a basketball fan either, Roger. It's kind of crazy. College.
I'm not no. You could have just stopped at basketball fan. I don't watch NBA either.
I did stop watching the NBA. It's been a minute since I watched the NBA, and it's man, we've talked about it a couple of times. I just can't do it anymore. It's tough. I think they like the spirit of the game, the fundamentals of the game. They're gone. They try to cater to, well, this is what we think the viewers want to see. This is what we want to, this is what we think that, high scoring, this and that, and then I can't stand LeBron James. But it was a very bad day yesterday if you were a Tar Heel fan, because I think I tweeted to you guys or texted to you guys. So Carolina basketball, they were ranked, well, they still are till Monday, ranked number 1 in the nation, which overrated. Okay, where they're at now and truly what their team is. I mean, they may end up being a top 5 team, but they're probably like a top 10 team, realistically, just looking at where their talent is. But they were playing yesterday against Iowa State, and Carolina football was playing against NC State, and they're both playing at the same time. I'm like, man, this is heaven. I get to watch both my Carolina teams. I was flipping back and forth, and my wife, she's getting all seasick because I'm going back and forth. I'm like, it's like 3rd and 7. I got to watch this, and they're scoring over here, this and that, and we end up losing both games. So within about I think literally within about 5 or 10 minutes apart of each other, the football team, they missed the field goal in, I think it was the second overtime. They ended up losing, and then the basketball team just self-destructed like in the last 90 seconds, 2 minutes or whatever. But what was supposed to be a great day to be a Tar Heel fan ended up being a very poor day to be a Tar Heel fan. So, but I think you're FSU guys. You guys pulled it out, right?
Football, yes. Yeah, we pulled it out. I tell you though, that UNC NC State game, that was a hell of a game. Like it really was, and it just came down, dude. And I think it just came down to which side got tired first. It was that was, dude, because that went to 2 overtimes, and it was basically, it was almost identical to the Florida State Florida game last night, to where it was like, okay, whenever somebody got the ball, they were going to score. right? It was either going to be a touchdown or a field goal,
Right.
but they were going to score, and it was like this is going to come down to whoever scores the last, whoever gets the ball last, like it's going to come down to to that. And man, I tell you, Florida State come a long way, you know, since the last year or two of Jimbo Fisher, and then we had 2 years of Willie Taggart. Sorry if you can hear my dog back into the back barking in the background. He's protecting us from that nice family with little kids who's walking through the neighborhood right now. He's a big dumb animal, but and so Florida State's had some lean years, and Mike Norville came in. This is his third season. His first season, I think we won 4 games. Everybody's like, oh, okay. Second season, he came in, he won 5 games, and and now this season, we've won 9 regular season games, and we got a bowl game. At some point. I mean, it's not going to be, it's not going to be, obviously a big bowl game. It'll be like the Popeyes chicken sandwich bowl.
Hell yeah.
Something Walmart like that.
God's bowl.
Yeah.
But you said something interesting about the Florida State Florida game, because I don't think I knew that your wife was a big Florida fan.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I can't believe I hadn't mentioned that before, or if I did, you old asses just don't remember it.
Probably.
So my wife's been she's been a Florida Gator fan ever since she was a kid. So she was born in Pensacola, Florida, and so Florida's kind of weird because when you look at the Panhandle, obviously you have Tallahassee right there in the center between Jacksonville and Pensacola, and obviously Tallahassee, that area that's Seminole country, right? But when you go to Pensacola, and I don't know why, Pensacola has a massive, massive amount of Florida Gator fans. And dude, University of Florida, this is in Central Florida, in Gainesville, kind of central-ish Florida, maybe North Central Florida. But yeah, so anyway, her sister graduated Florida State, like hold on yards. She became a Gator fan just to kind of buck the system of the area she lived in. Because she's got that whole problem with authority thing. It's one of many reasons why I married her, because we have that in common. And man, there's been some times in our house, especially when Florida State and Florida, when they were always in the top 10 and they were powerhouses. Man, there were some times we'd have to watch the game in separate rooms because we would start trash talking, and it got like, man, it got pretty chippy. And
when they were powerhouses, that was when Moses wore short pants. But Florida State is projected to go to the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl and play Purdue.
I love it.
It's not a joke.
I love
North Carolina is projected to go to the Cheez-It Bowl, where they will play. I'm not joking. Where they will play Okie Light, which is Oklahoma State, and my Texas Tech is projected to go to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. They're in Rogers' neck of the woods and play Maryland. And I'll tell you right now, I won't be able to make it to that bowl game. I was hoping that maybe I could, but my daughter will be in town and we're not going to be able to go down there. I was thinking, man, if they went to a bowl in Phoenix, the wife and I would just come down and stay with Roger.
Bring the daughter too, man. You guys can all go to the bowl game, crash here at the house. We could actually do an entire episode on bowl names, I think. Just based off what you read, like we could do an entire episode off bowl names.
Those are great names, all three. The Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl.
That's terrible. I wonder what the trophy is for that one. Is it just like a giant ass jar of Duke's mayonnaise?
Big plastic tub.
Yeah. And you get like a snow shovel to get it out with. It was, God, man. We've come so far.
Oh
dude, what the bowls growing up, you had the Fiesta, the Rolls, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar, the Cotton, and the Orange Bowl. Were there any others? I think that was it.
I mean, the Gator Bowl kind of. I mean, that's been around a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then Sugar Bowl, Fiesta Bowl.
Sugar Iron Bowl. Yeah, the Iron Bowl.
A couple of those. Yeah.
Yeah, but by and large, man, it's like
I don't think the famous Idaho Potato Bowl wasn't around yet. It's an actual bowl.
Who's going to that?
I don't know.
It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it does.
Oh,
it's
Lord.
projected to be Bowling Green and Utah State. Well, that'll be.
I love it. Man, yeah, dude. That Florida State Florida game. I love it. Yeah, but that dude, that FSU Gator Bowl, man, that dude, that took 20 years off my life last night. Because Florida State has a bad habit of playing down to to the level of the team that they're playing. And I tell you, Richardson, the Florida Gators quarterback, that guy is no slouch, man. That guy is good. He is very, very good. And in Florida, we lucked out because Florida was without 4 or 5 of their starting wide receivers, um, due to injuries. So we kind of lucked out. Um, man, dude, some of the scores from today though, got some decent ones out there. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch any college ball today.
I watched Michigan pound. Well, kind of watched Michigan pound the crap out of Ohio State. That was funny.
Dude, when Ohio State loses, America wins.
So real quick before you get into the scores, I was looking up the trophy for the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl, and a few years back, it looks like a regular trophy. It just says Duke's Mayonnaise on it, but some jackass Wisconsin Badgers dude was playing around with it in the locker room, dropped it and broke it. I always wonder about that. It's like, what if they drop that? Don't drop that crystal football, man. Don't drop that. Don't drop that.
Yeah, dude, that's all bad. Yeah, Mississippi. So and again, like, so this is a couple days ago. Like, so, dude, South Carolina beat Clemson 31-30.
Oh wow,
South Carolina. Oh yeah, South Carolina unranked. Clemson was number 7. Clemson will not be number 7 come Monday morning. South Carolina beat them by 1 point. Like Luke said, Michigan over Ohio State, which, thank God. Ohio State is one of the most consistently overrated teams in the country.
Every single year.
Every single year, and it makes me, and it kind of makes me warm inside because we know some diehard Ohio State fans, and I know they're really upset today, and that just that hate keeps me warm.
So the other overrated teams, Josh, that's a good point. I would lump in Notre Dame is consistently overrated. Like, they rank them way too high at the beginning of the season, and University of Texas consistently. So those 3 teams. Is there another one? USC maybe? I don't know.
I think maybe USC.
Any Pac-12 team.
Well, I would
whatever
say
it is now is overrated.
Or Oregon would be one. I think Oregon's consistently overrated.
Gonzaga in college basketball is overrated every year.
I watched them play, though. They looked good.
They do, but they play. So it's like Carolina football. I mean, we joke back and forth, but like, we had a fairly easy schedule this year, considering. And so they front load. I say front loaded. It's not like they choose their schedule, but they had an easy schedule at the beginning of the year. So they go, and I think they're 9-2 or whatever it is now, or 9-3, whatever. But they get all these wins. They start stacking wins. Like, oh wow, these guys are really good. Well, if you play nobody, and that's Gonzaga's problem, is the competition is. It's like football, right? If you play in the SEC, you're going to get scuffed up. That's just the way it is. It's so competitive. And even now, you can argue the ACC, you're going to come away with a couple losses. But when you play out in these conferences where you are the powerhouse, and there is no parity with, as far as other teams in your league, yeah, you come away with 31-0. If you're 31-0, that tells you right there how good your conference is. And then when they go play teams back east, they get stomped. Or I shouldn't say stomped. I mean, they make it a game because they are a good team. Don't get me wrong, but you're not playing the same caliber that folks in the ACC, SEC, Big Ten, or whatever are playing day in and day out.
I hate Gonzaga.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. And I hate to say it, but Florida State, when Florida State joined the ACC, was a perfect example. I mean, they won the ACC championship 13 straight years, and it wasn't close. And it wasn't,
which is why we brought Florida State into the ACC, because they're like, hey, we suck in college football.
And now the ACC, dude, it's, Clemson's been on top, for a while. But you have some other teams in there in the ACC that are legit, and they can hang with a lot of teams. They're not going to hang with Alabama, or a team like that, but they're going to hang with a lot of teams. The game tonight that I kind of want to watch is going to be Notre Dame and USC. I think that's going to be a good game. Notre Dame's ranked number 13. USC's ranked number 5. I don't think USC is a true number 5. And it's a rivalry game, and those rivalry games, man, those things can go either way.
When is that on?
It's
That,
7:30.
it's 6. So, okay, yeah, yeah. I won't be able to watch. I'll be flipping. I'll have one TV on that and one because I cannot stand Notre Dame. I just I love to hate Notre Dame. I love to hate Gonzaga. Those are and Texas, University of Texas.
I want USC to lose just because they're from California.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm with Roger on the Pac whatever it is. I just don't think they're that good. But let's put Josh on the spot. I don't know if we've actually talked about this on the podcast, but Josh and Roger go back and forth, and myself as well. I side with Roger on this one. Even though Clemson got beat, right? Josh is saying the reason there should be a 64-team playoff in college football or 32, whatever you say, is because there's just as much parity in college football. Like Bowling Green on any given Saturday has a chance to beat Georgia. There's parity just like there is in NCAA basketball. So, Josh, do you want to still defend that, or are you coming off of that? Or are you going to stick with that?
Unranked South Carolina beat number 7 Clemson today. So, what are your questions?
Oh, yeah, Roger. You think there's just as much parity? I mean,
no, there definitely isn't. I mean, you can obviously plot examples where it happens, but when you look at I would bet that when you go back and look at the odds, historically, you have more unranked teams beat top 5. Because here's a fact: if you play any 2 top 25 teams in college basketball play, I mean, it's fair to say it's going to be a toss-up. In college football, it's not like that. I mean, you take a number 2, number 1, number 2 team, play the number 20 team, they're probably projected by Vegas odds to blow them out by 30 points or more. I mean, that's just on the average, that's the way it is. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying there's a big difference between your top 25 and outside of top 25 teams in college football and college basketball. I mean, college basketball, nothing's a given, but you come from any of your big conferences. I mean, you look at Carolina gets beat by unranked, Iowa State. Number 1 team in the nation.
I will say, do you think, Josh, that it should be, because I've heard them kicking around a 12-team playoff, and I'm like, how does that work? I haven't looked into it, but I've heard them kicking around 12 teams. Well, I'm no math wizard, I'm not a beautiful mind or anything, but it seems like that kind of wouldn't work unless it was round robin, which it's not going to be. But Josh, would you say 16-team playoff or 32?
A 16-team playoff would be good.
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable.
Because the ranking, how they do the rankings right now is crap. It's frog legs and chicken bones and a little bit of a blood of a unicorn, and then they're like, okay, this is what it's going to be. Because here's my question. So Florida State is ranked number 16. All right, as of yesterday. And today, since the polls have changed, I don't know what they're going to be on Monday when the polls come out. It really doesn't matter because that was their last regular season game. But tell me how LSU, when you look at strength of schedule, who lost to Florida State, and it wasn't close. It wasn't, down to the last 30 seconds of the game, and LSU is ranked number 6 in the country. LSU went up in rankings, I think it was 4 weeks ago. They went up, they lost to somebody else, and they actually went up in rankings after the loss. So that tells me right there, when you start talking, well, only the top 10, only the top 5, there's no parity, after the top 10, or it's complete bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
You want to get gangster with it too.
16-team playoff minimum.
Yeah.
No, I'm done. Yeah, 16 teams.
So if you want to get gangster with it, well, first of all, let me back up. You said chicken bones and frog legs and witchcraft. I agree with that. But I also think that ratings go into it big time. Like if you can drive up their ranking, that let's say it's Texas OU, right? And they're going to play in game 10, right? It makes more sense ratings wise to inflate their ranking, because more people are going to tune in. Holy cow, Texas is 8 and Oklahoma is 9. When in reality, they should probably be 17 and 20, or maybe not even ranked. But you get that ranking comes with ratings. So I think that absolutely factors into it, which I think is BS. But if you want to get gangster with it, Roger, you take automatically, if you win your conference, you get a bowl spot. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Strength of
Sure. It's like
schedule,
college
all that stuff.
basketball.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you get
I agree
a
with that.
bowl slot. Then
Yeah.
where the rubber meets the road, we'd see, because I think we all agree the SEC is the conference. But you'd see consistently the pack, whatever it is, not do well. Because same with whatever Bowling Green. I don't even know what conference they're in. But yeah, so 16. I mean, how many conferences are there?
Where you got 5 majors, right? And then you've got
Right.
Yeah.
however many mids or whatever. So, and that's the way college basketball does it. Hey, if you are in one of the major conferences, it's an automatic bid. So when you go to the round of 64 or 68, whatever it is now, but your final 64, it's like, hey, if you're from one of the conferences and you win your conference championship, you automatically go. It's an automatic berth, and then from then on out, it just goes on strength of schedule, your ranking or whatever. And then that's the difference with college football, because like Josh was talking about with the rankings, they don't do this in college. So in college basketball, a win is a win. So very, very seldomly, unless some other team ends up going to a mid-season tournament and ends up beating like the top 3 teams in the country, if you win, you generally speaking are not going to fall in the ratings. And if you lose, you're probably not going to go up. Now, again, there are exceptions. That it does happen every now and then. But with college football, they actually factor the amount, and this is almost criminal, I think, whether you covered the spread or not. So if you were projected to win by 31 points, and if Florida State's projected to win by 31 points and they win by 25, they could actually drop in their rankings because they didn't cover the spread. Now, they don't call it that, right? They just say, well, they were expected to win by 31 and they didn't win by 31. They won by 25, so they dropped. So they're not as good as we thought they were. Or that's called not covering the spread. So I think when you look at, whether it's TV rankings and probably a little bit of Vegas odds in there. I mean, you throw in that unicorn blood that Josh is talking about. It's complete garbage. I mean, and I'm not even sure. I mean, and that's why you have so many different polls, because it used to be, well, maybe not used to be. There's always been a variety of polls, but it was the AP poll. And then you had, the UPI poll, right? And then now you've got the coaches poll and the ESPN poll and the USA Today. And there's a reason for that, because they look and they say, yeah, you lost and you went up 3 spots. Like, how in the hell does that work? Right?
Yeah. The only poll, you're right. It used to be the AP poll. That was the gold standard. The AP poll was the poll, and it didn't matter, what the coaches poll and, the UPI poll and all that stuff said. That whatever the AP poll was, that was what it was. And the whole spread thing and everything, I get that, but that should not factor in to rankings, period. Right? Yeah, man. You want it. The bookies can do what they want, but it doesn't matter. It should be, if we're gonna, if we're going to have a true playoff system and a true ranking system, who's better than who, then it comes down to a win is a win, whether you win by 1 point or whether you win by 50. Like it should not matter. If we're gonna do that, and then guess what? If you lose, you do not move up spots just because you didn't, some team didn't cover the spread or whatever, right? And I go back to the Florida State LSU thing, and I'm not saying Florida State should be in the top 10. They're not a top 10 team, but when LSU lost to Florida State the second game of the season, Florida State was unranked. So when you go in and you lose to an unranked team, you should not move up in the polls. Period. It just should not happen. And that's why I don't agree with, that's why I say that there is parity outside the top 10 with top 10 teams.
We're losing Jesse with all this sports games talk. I guarantee you, Jesse. Sorry about that. Hopefully you're still with us. He just sent me Jesse is doing a build for me, a semi build, if you know what I mean. We don't want to get canceled by YouTube. And he sent me a picture of it. I've been meaning to send him some parts for it. I was going to order it, send it to him, and I've just haven't gotten around to it, and it's been months. And I think he finally was like, screw this, I'm just going to do it. And he sent me pictures. I don't think he's messing with me. He sent me pictures of it, and I'm like, oh God. And like descriptions. So I sent him the Tiger King meme. I'm never going to recover financially from this. So my gosh, this beautiful work. He might be just messing with me and saying, that it may be his, because dude's got some beautiful pieces. And if that's his piece, it's a nice piece, man. It really is.
Yeah. Dude, so you guys know, like I just got done building one, and I I don't know, like there were some things that I wanted in there, and so okay, I spent I spent a little bit extra on, especially when you're talking about the innards of it, um, but honestly, I didn't see. I saw some, but not a lot of like price, variation. It's like, okay, could I have bought one, complete, for the same price as build one? I don't know. Um, you know, so, but I'm building another. It's on my to do list. I have a lot of things on my to do list, man.
I thought you lost that in a boating accident last week. That's what
Well,
you
I,
told me.
well, I did. That's why I said I'm building another one.
Okay, okay.
Um,
You need to stop having those boating accidents out in the middle of the ocean, man.
they're terrible. They're absolutely terrible. It's weird. It keeps happening. Oh, you think I learned my lesson one day?
I know,
Um,
man.
so
ATF, they're gonna be, they're gonna be trawling the waters. What do they call that when they trawl for?
yeah,
Yeah,
the troll. Yep. Yeah. I'm surprised people haven't. Well, maybe there are. Yeah, just don't know about it, man. But if I had a boat, that didn't sink in the middle of Pamlico Sound last week, with all my builds on it, I'd I'd take my boat that didn't sink, and I would get one of those get one of those sonars, that like treasure hunters and stuff, they drag behind their boats. That, and dude, I would get like a massive ass earth magnet, and just start going to town, just absolutely start going to town, especially over bridges and stuff, where bridges cross rivers and stuff like that. Did you see those dudes? Did you guys see the guys on Fort Stewart? I think it was Fort Stewart that got arrested because they had magnets on a rope, and they were on a bridge on posts, and they were just chucking them in the water and seeing what came up, and they pulled up some ordnance.
Ooh.
They pulled up some ordnance. They got arrested. The
For
MPs
what?
arrested them. I think eventually it was dismissed or arrested for having ordnance, and they were like, dude, we're magnet fishing. What do you like? What?
remember when the SF groups used to dump all their extra ammo in the what lake was that? Remember when they used to do
Lake.
that? Yeah.
Yes, dude. I tell you, anybody who went out with a big magnet in Mott Lake, you could probably go home. You may go home with some NFA items, like for real. Like you may go home with some NFA stuff.
Hey, explain to the audience why they did that. The special forces
Oh,
groups at Fort Bragg were well known for around the August
eh,
September timeframe. They would go dump ammo or
yeah.
just stuff in
So
Montlake.
so like the end of the fiscal year, right? And so one ammo turn in is a massive pain in the ass to begin with. I remember when I went to PLDC, and you remember, so you do your silly little FTX and PLDC. Now they call it, I don't know what they call it now, like I don't know, the Safe Space Leaders course or some shit. And so, but they would give you like, a basic load, 210 rounds of blanks, right? And I'm like, I'm not shooting these blanks because they're incredibly dirty. They make your weapon dirty AF, man, and you spend hours scrubbing that thing. And so I just took my blanks and I dug a hole and I buried them in the dirt in the training area. And I was like, whatever, because I was like, I'm not putting these things through my weapon. And but again, so ammo turn-ins a pain in the butt, and right at the end of the fiscal year, a lot of groups and stuff, they have all this extra ammo and dunnage that they've had all year long, and their turn-ins a little bit different. They're a lot more lenient and stuff like that, but it's a major paperwork hassle. It's a real pain in the butt. So it's easier to drive down to Mott Lake and just chuck it all in the water, and be done with it. Because at the end of the day, dude, hey man, supply.
If you were on Fort Bragg between 1988 and
Yeah,
2001, you can file
and you drank water out of Mott Lake, you probably have lead poisoning,
Dude, I
um,
remember, and it wasn't even just them. I remember being at Bragg. I was there about a year before you guys there were, and that's because they changed the turn-in process. It used to be they didn't account for it. You just took the ammo, and you didn't really have a turn-in, so you didn't want to turn in live ammo because of the extra paperwork. But I remember coming back on a deuce and a half on the tank trails back there in Bragg. And whatever you had left, they're like, hey, spread it out and chuck them in the woods and
Yep.
and you would throw them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If it was a live round, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely get rid of it. Because turning live rounds in was a massive pain in the ass. So yeah, it was just easy. It was easier to literally throw it in a lake than it was to turn it in. And that's just the bureaucracy. It was so ridiculous.
You said deuce and a half. It reminded me of a story that should have put in the book, where it was my first duty assignment at Fort Carson. It was the first time I had been to a range after basic training, and I was just range detail. I wasn't there to shoot. And it was an engineer. I think it was engineer. I should have told my daughter this story. Engineer company, and these engineers, there's this E5, me, and two other E3s, whatever. And we're cleaning up, and they had to take a 50 cal back, right? They still had the 50 cal, and they made a bet. The sergeant made a bet with one of the PFC's engineers that he couldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot the 50 cal without a tripod. And the PFC, and he's a big dude. PFC was a big hulking dude. And he's like, hell yeah, I can. How many rounds? 3 rounds. 3 rounds. So they chained up 3 rounds. He got in the back of a deuce and a half. Remember the old deuce and a halves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he laid belly down on the deuce and a half, put his head down, and he had his feet up against the back of the deuce, or the front of the deuce and a half, the bed.
Yep.
And so he's braced out there like that, and and we are all standing way behind, because it's like, oh shit, here we go. And so the dude, he did it. He pressed down on the trigger, and it happened so fast. It was boom, boom, boom. And they were like, holy shit. But the last round went down through the bottom of the deuce and a half.
Like, oh, what? No.
So basically, when he hit that butterfly trigger, it came back, hit him in the forehead hard. And so he pressed down harder, sent him to the back of the deuce and a half. Boom. And the second round went off and kind of went through the side. And the third round, it went up like this. So he boom down through the bottom. It messed him up. Broke his skull, broke his face. And I had nothing to do with it after that. It was
not
just
service
like,
connected.
Go home specialist. They told some lie. And because he was messed up, dude. His face was crushed. But he was conscious, and they were all laughing about it. And I was like, so this is the Army, huh? I'd been in the Army for like 6 months or 7 months. And I was like, wow. But yeah, so you can fire a 50 cal without a tripod.
Not
3 rounds
connected.
Oh, that was hilarious, man.
That poor guy.
Yeah, it was a great story, though. Stories like that.
Not recommended. Good Lord.
Oh,
Mark 19. Try it with Mark 19.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. Try not to do that with HE.
I want to know what the lie they came up with was. Like,
I do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things you can come up, but I'm like, okay, so you have a hole in the side and the bottom. So exactly how did that work out? Like, how did that happen? Draw pictures for me. I got to see this.
I have no idea what happened, but no one ever spoke to me about it. Like they sent me home while they took him to the hospital there at Fort Carson, left somebody with the 50 cal ammunition, and they sent me home. And I was just like, I didn't know how the Army worked. I'd only been in for 7 months, but I was like, surely somebody's going to ask me about this. Nope,
bro,
never happened.
Your name, when they said who was there, your name didn't even come up.
Probably not. Yeah, MI guy, freaking snitch.
Yep, they straight minimized that. They were like, no, man, that dude was not here.
Army was different back then, man. Pre 9/11, remember those days? It was hard to get ammo.
Garrison Army, man.
We're back hard to get ammo. It was hard to get toilet paper, dude. There was a couple of days, Luke. I remember, like when we were there in the same company, it would be like, man, hey, I'll be back in like 15, 20 minutes. And because I had to walk back across the the company area to the barracks, because I had to go big potty, and there was no toilet paper in the company to go big potty. You only got like 2 rolls a week in there. And you get like 20 something people in there. That's not enough.
Yeah, Smitty used to bring his own toilet paper to work with him. I remember that.
Yeah. Because there was no toilet paper. And because you couldn't get any, man. If you went down to see, supply sergeant, be like, hey, we need some toilet paper. He'd be like, nah, man, I already put the 2 rolls in there for this week. That's it. Once that's gone, it's gone.
First Sergeant Renee told people, because there was plenty of Simple Green, so she said, just spray your butt with Simple Green, you'll be fine, and let it dry off.
If you were assigned to First Sergeant Renee's company from this date to this date, you may be entitled to compensation.
She used to, Roger, she used to, I know you haven't read the book, but she used to take us on company runs, and without fail. Yeah, man, you should check it out. It's called Snafus, Foo Bars, Tarfus, and Other Sordid Tales. It's a great book. You should check it out. Available on Amazon. But when First Sergeant Renee, because she was an athlete, man, she was no joke. She's a good first sergeant, in my opinion. But every time we go on a company run, once a week at least, she would inevitably, after about mile 2.5, she would run us in formation to a porta potty bank, and she would go in there and blow it up. Big job in the porta potty. And on one particular time, Josh was there. She goes in, blows it up, and she put us a little too close to the porta potties, and we could hear it. And buddy, it sounded like she was doing the business. And we started laughing. So she started front back going us, smoking us from inside the porta potty while she was taking a dump. Front. Think it's funny?
Yeah. God, man, it was so good because it was every Friday. A company run every Friday. She would take the formation. She would kick all the officers, all the real officers and then the warrant officers. She would be like, go away. And dude, all of the enlisted, it was like, all right, man, we're about to go do 5 or 6 miles at a very fast pace, and it's going to suck. Dude, we get halfway down Long Street, and or Butner, one of the two, and it looked like somebody's. by the time we got to right, I mean, you were in the unit too. By the time we got to where the command is, or down at the bottom of the hill, that little park on Butner by the lake, it would look like somebody had set off a claymore in the formation because they're like half of it's gone. Right. And it's just strung out, dude. It's like the Trail of Tears for like a mile because she would break out of there because she could run. And like Luke said, man, she was an athlete, but she would break out. Dude, that first mile, we were probably running that first mile just under 6 minutes. Easy.
And
sprint. It was just, yeah, man, it was, and she was in shape. She was absolutely in shape. But she was crazy, dude.
They know they're going to change. They're going to change the name of Fort Bragg, right? You know that.
I know it's going to be Fort Liberty.
That's just, we could get on the naming changes and the statues and all that stuff, but they're changing. Like if you're going to change it to something less yag. You know what I'm saying? Fort Liberty. Isn't there a Jeep named after that? It's like the worst Jeep model ever designed is a Jeep Liberty. And the word is great, but the word is it's one of those words that's just like, okay, it's like the Democrats saying democracy's on the ballot, but Josh or Roger, whichever, Fort Campbell, I believe, is like going to be Fort Hal Moore. I like that. I mean, I don't like the fact they're changing the name, because obviously I'm a racist, but Fort Hal Moore is kind of cool, I think. So, I mean, can't they? What would you call Fort Bragg? Like,
I don't know. But I agree that you name it after heroes, right? I mean, the problem with like Fort Liberty, it reminds me of like North Korean propaganda. That's what it does. It's exactly. It's like we're going to name this Fort Liberty, and because this is what we do, and it's just like, come on, man.
You're going to liberate the shit out of you.
Yeah, that's right. Free the shit out of you.
Ghana. No, you're absolutely right. In the Fort Liberty, when you look at it, okay. So we're gonna, typically, installations are named after people who made a significant contribution, right, or sacrifice. The same thing with buildings on those installations. They're generally named, and even conference rooms inside those buildings, they are named after some individual person who made some sort of, significant sacrifice. And you thinking about it, you're like, okay, so Fort Bragg. Let's think about the units that are at Fortress Bragg, right? So first off, you can start with the 82nd Airborne Division. You could have picked any Medal of Honor winner out of the 82nd Airborne Division, and the 82nd's only been around, I don't know, for how long? You couldn't find one Medal of Honor winner out of the 82nd Airborne Division? Okay, we'll go over to, Special Forces Command. So inside the U.S. Army Special Forces Command at Fort Bragg, you couldn't find one Medal of Honor winner. one Medal of Honor awardee to name Fort Bragg after, and then you talk about all of the other, special operations organizations, that are on Fort Bragg. It's like you couldn't find one, huh? I mean, good Lord. Like, come on. Like you get, it was such a, it's like it's almost like getting a gift card for Christmas, from a close family. You're like, really? You just kind of mailed it
100,
in, huh?
125 years old, 82nd. It was
Yeah.
obviously not airborne, but the 82nd Division is 5 August 1917. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, it's got to be
Dude,
someone.
yeah, think of all the people in the 82nd Airborne Division who have been awarded the Medal of Honor, from every major war. And dude, just pick one. It was like Fort Hood. Dude, if you're going to rename Fort Hood, all right, fine. It's dumb, but rename it Fort Benavides. Like it should have been named after Roy Benavides, right? Medal of Honor awardee from Vietnam. His story was amazing. Like, name it after that. Fort Liberty. Really? That's the best you could come up with? You had a commission, people getting paid $174K a year minimum, and that's what you got. Good grief.
Well, and that's the
Absolutely.
problem. That's the bigger problem is that one, they're spending time on this. It's the time, the money, the resources, and the effort. When I'm pretty sure there's some other issues that we should be focused on, and when you get above that, they're missing the whole lack of historical context. And when you start removing that from your decision making process, you start to impact just our society as a whole. Tradition's gone. Right. I mean, you start to, when you remove the reason why these, and I'm not saying that every single name out there or whatever, it deserves it, doesn't deserve it, whatever, but you're missing the context of the time when they named it. When you look at, post Civil War, when you look at, trying to bring the South into the mix and this and that, and to be one big happy family, yada, yada, yada. I mean, that was the point of a lot of that stuff. It was like, hey, we're not trying to pour salt in the wound. We're trying to heal as a nation. And that was the whole point of a lot of those names, right? Not that oh, we want to celebrate them or whatever, but again, you're not pouring salt in their wounds, and you remove that. So then I guess we just get to a point where, hey, every 20 years or every 30 years, we're just going to have to go back and look with zero historical context, and we'll just start renaming things based on how we feel today. That's how we'll do it.
Yeah. Well, you take, so we had Fort Sherman, right? So Fort Sherman was in Panama at a time before they closed everything down and moved a bunch of folks to to Puerto Rico and then and back to other places in CONUS. But when they started talking about, and we had a Fort Grant. Granted, I mean, that was way back in the that was back when we were still settling the West. But people started talking about, well, why not name it after William Tecumseh Sherman or Ulysses S. Grant, right? Union generals. Grant went on to be president. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about Grant and Sherman. Talk to me what Grant and Sherman did after the Civil War out on the Great Plains. So if we're using that same moral standard, right? How long before somebody decides, "Oh, hold up. Wait, we read a history book after after that happened after 1864, and Grant and Sherman, Grant came up with the plan to cleanse the plains of Native Americans." But yet people still, he was with the Union, so he was good. And it's like, well, he's good now, but what about in 15 years? What about in 15 years when this comes up? Oh no, we can't have this. So we're doing this all over again, and we're spending more money changing names. We're changing all the road names, on installations and all this stuff because this guy didn't meet the moral standard of 2020, 2022. You know, that we overlaid back in 1864 when none of us were alive and nobody was alive and nobody has any historical context to put that time period in. I mean, even Lincoln coming out and saying, hey, we can't start the peace with a bunch of hangings, and they're our countrymen again. Even that's like, no, that's not good enough. We're still trying to we're still trying to correct the perceived wrongs, of over 100 years ago, which is it's a fool's errand.
Yeah,
It's a fool's errand.
I think Fort Bradley would be good. Omar Bradley. I mean, you still got the BRA, Fort Bradley. He was 82nd, and then Fort York, Sergeant York.
Alvin York, man. There you go.
I mean, why not? I think that may be the point, Josh, of, this is a nice little segue. That may be the point of this, new woke world order kind of thing is like, okay, yeah, change it to Fort Sherman. That's fine. And then it's like, but that's problematic as well. There's going to be a problem with anything to do with military or violence, so let's water it down, so on and so forth. And speaking of the New World Order, so there's a guy, I'm going to shout him out on Twitter, called Emergency Exit. And I always like to humble myself, especially on Twitter, man. When I screw up, I'll say I screwed up uh, publicly because I think there needs to be more of that, And I basically misread one of these guys' tweets. Somebody was talking about, we need to call out all these people who are part of the New World Order, at all these summits they go to, the Davos and all that. And this guy, Emergency Exit, he commented, "I want a comprehensive list of who you're talking about." And I was like, this liberal POS, and normally I'll go to someone's profile to make sure I'm not getting trolled, and I'll look at who they are and, what they've tweeted in the past before I comment. This time I didn't. I just popped off and I was like, this guy's a midwit, unless you can, and what he wants is an exhaustive list that you can't provide him. And he's going to call your argument illogical until you give him an exhaustive list. Well, that's not what he was saying. And I called him a midwit, which I shouldn't have done because that's a great term. That's a great term, and he basically came back at me and he's like, dude, I want a list. You're being a jackass. Who's the midwit? I want a list. I want to know who they're talking about, so we can call them out. And I was like, no. So then I went and looked at his profile, and sure enough, he has some similar views to us. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not going to delete the tweets. I'm going to leave them up there to my eternal shame. And because I think there needs to be more of that. And lately, I don't know if it's bias that I'm feeling on Twitter. Kick it to you, Roger. Bias I'm feeling on Twitter where I feel like that it's better. And I don't know if that's me just thinking it's better because Musk took over or if they've actually made changes that make the experience more enjoyable, because I'm starting to see more tweets from people people we follow. By the way, Emergency Exit, this is all three of us tweeting most of the time. So Josh there may tweet something I don't agree with, but it stays up there. It's one of the reasons sometimes we'll like our own tweets because Josh will tweet something. I'm like, hell yeah. And I'll go in and like it. So, but on that account and my own as well, I'm seeing more interaction with people I did not see before from both sides. It's become less of an echo chamber. I'm seeing more conflicting viewpoints. I'm seeing more conflicting viewpoints being called out on a massive scale. And I don't know, Roger, do you think, I mean, I know you may not spend as much time on Twitter as we do, and you've had your own issues that you may or may not want to talk about with Twitter. But what do you think? Do you think that Musk has done something, or is this just my bias and everyone else's who hated Twitter the way it was before?
I think he's done exactly what he said he was going to do. That it's supposed to be a free speech platform, so he's opened it up. So I think you're seeing a lot more. And I don't know how anecdotal this is or whatever. Just my observation. Prior to Elon Musk buying Twitter, the majority of stuff that I saw, whether you subscribe, followed, not, whatever, just the random posts that you got, were from far left extremists, and that was probably 85% of the timeline, right? And especially if I wasn't following just like the recommended posts or whatever, it may even be higher than that. It may be 90% of that stuff. And now I think what you're starting to see is, one, it's kind of funny because those crazy far left people have gone to places like Mastodon and Gab and all these places that the right went to several years ago, which are still crap platforms that can't get their crap together. But a lot of those folks have left. But you're also starting to see a lot of things balanced out from folks on the right that we weren't seeing before, that are now, accounts have been reinstated. I think he said this week, starting Monday, they're starting to go through that process of reinstating, suspended accounts, unless it was like for child porn or something like that, right? I mean, something illegal. They're obviously going to leave it suspended, or shut it down. But you're starting to see a lot more viewpoints that are middle of the road. You're also starting to see a lot more viewpoints that are closer to what we believe in, which makes it more of an enjoyable experience. The problem is, even though you start to see things that It's like we're not in a cult. We don't belong in a cult. The three of us anyway. We don't belong to a cult, and I have no issues like what Luke said. I have no problems being called out and like, hey, you're wrong because of this. Because I look at it and that's the only thing that we ask for. It's like, hey, look, I'm just looking for the facts. That's it. Educate me. If I'm wrong, show me, hey, you're wrong, and this is why you're wrong, A, B, C, D, and E. And I have no issues with that. I'm like, hey, matter of fact, like, thanks. And I'll probably use that to future arguments. I have no issues with that. And it's not a left-leaning thing or a right-leaning thing. I just want to know what the facts are so I can make my own decisions, right? The problem is, even with the right, and this is what I fear, is you're going to find that the far left and the far right, they're not that different, because there is no, like what you just said right there, where you're like, my bad, got it, apologies, you leave it up. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on the right because you're just not far right enough. Whoa, now you're a dirtbag because of this, that, whatever. It's like, well, just show me the data. Show me, it's the same thing with, we've had enough episodes banned off COVID and everything else. It's like, hey, I'm not saying I disagree with all this stuff or whatever. It's like, I just want to know the data. Show me the facts so I can make an informed decision, an educated decision. We discussed them here. But when you can't present those to me and then you start throwing out, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you a quick question. It pertains to what you're talking about. Do you honestly believe that Richard Gere inserted a gerbil into a part of his body? Do you believe that happened? I don't. I personally don't. But that was a huge urban legend back in the day that was spread without Twitter. Without Twitter, without anything. But now, anytime someone says Richard Gere, a lot of people think of the gerbil thing if they're old enough. And it's like, there's always been misinformation. It's up to us, right, to parse out what it is. If it's always been that way. Think of any urban legend. The Richard Gere thing, I don't know why that one came up, but there's a lot of those. It's well, and like, I 100% agree with you.
You solve that by being transparent and showing the facts and showing the data. And it's kind of funny because I had some notes here along those lines. It's like the reason why conspiracies exist is because the other side isn't transparent enough. And now sometimes there's reasons for it, right? I get it. There are certain issues, national security issues, intelligence, this and that, where you just can't. But like the JFK documents, why are they still classified? This is like 60 years later. Like, why is anything still classified related to the JFK documents? Now, I'm not saying there were 14 other shooters on the Hill and this and that, but it just makes me wonder. You start to sit here and say, well, why are they still classified? Like, what's the deal with all that?
Because
Josh, you look like you were saying something.
No, it's still classified, not because, people are, a lot of those people are still alive and stuff. It's because of the institutions that still exist that were involved. That's why it's still classified.
Conspiracy theorists. What the hell are you talking about?
Hey, man.
What do you think happened? Like, if you had to put it all down on the line and say, okay, you got to give me a 1-page summary, and no more than 1 page of what happened, and if you get it right, you get, $1 billion. What would you say actually happened? Like,
so I'll start with before, back in the day, I had no idea what happened, right? Because all you hear is all these crazy conspiracy theories. But after I got involved with the job that we all did in the Army, and I started reading a bunch of biographies, autobiographies, and stuff. But I started reading a lot on James Jesus Angleton, and so you guys know who James Angleton is for listeners who may not know. So James Angleton, he was an OSS man, and he became the head of counterintelligence for the Central Intelligence Agency after they were formed. And he was he was the lead for counterintelligence in the CIA up until he basically got fired. He got let go. I think it was in the 70s. I think the mid to late 70s.
Okay, you're at 3/4 of a page. I'm joking.
So, if you guys get a chance, read the book The Ghost. It's a less than flattering expose on James Angleton, and it matches up with a lot of other stuff out there. So Angleton had a relationship, a working relationship. Yep, that's it right there. With this guy named Lee Harvey Oswald, and Angleton, had dealt with Oswald when Oswald was in Mexico, in and out of the Cuban embassy, right? And then Oswald goes on and murders, JFK, and of course it was, quickly dismissed as, he was acting on his own. There was no connection. I don't believe there was a second shooter there. After seeing everything, in the Zapruder film, and reading all the accounts and stuff like that, I don't think there was a second shooter. But I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald just up and sua sponte that, and acted on of his own accord. I think that uh, JFK's brother was Robert Kennedy, Attorney General. I think he was looking into the CIA and what some of the things the CIA were doing. And this goes back to Angleton. Angleton, was doing mail covers on a lot of influential Americans, a lot. And along with Hoover, right? So remember, this is the same time as J. Edgar. And so you talk about, yeah, Northwoods. That's a great point. JFK was not on board with Northwoods, and I'll let you explain what that is here in a minute, Luke. But when you start looking at all the stuff or the relationships between James Angleton and Lee Harvey Oswald, and some of the problems that Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, was going to cause the CIA. Um, I I think you can connect the dots fairly easy. It's one of those, hey man, there's some smoke here, and it definitely deserves some deeper looks. But when they started, but when they really started going after, um, when they really started going after Angleton, um, and the mail covers and a lot of the other things that the CIA was doing, and we're talking about egregious constitutional rights violations, egregious in the agency. I think they decided that problem needed to go away because because there's no reason for Jack Ruby to kill Oswald in the basement of the police station and go to jail and then die in jail, right? There's no reason for Ruby to do that. If Oswald acted on his own, there's no reason for Ruby, who was not a JFK supporter, to do that, right? None. It doesn't make sense, right? And I always try and go back. Okay, what makes the most sense? So anyway, that was probably more than a page, but Luke can't tell me what to do. Now you can tell everybody what Northwoods is.
Well, I agree. I don't know enough about the second shooter theory to say. All I know is what I hear Joe Rogan say. I haven't really read a whole lot about the bullet trajectories and all that. I haven't read much about it. So I'm not going to comment on that. Joe Rogan certainly believes there's a second shooter, but I agree that I think Kennedy had made too many enemies, not just in the CIA, but DOD. I think Operation Northwoods, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Lyman Limnitzer, I believe, signed off on Operation Northwoods, which was it was basically a false flag operation where they were going to supposedly shoot down empty jet airliners flying, and blame it on the Cubans. They were going to shoot up or blow up Cuban refugee boats. They were going to stage, fake terrorist attacks within the United States, and they weren't supposed to be violent. It was all supposed to be staged, and the whole point was to blame it on the Cubans, and so we could go to war with Cuba. And when Kennedy saw this, it had already been signed off on by everybody. Everybody's like, yeah, "This is a great idea." Kennedy saw it and was like, "Absolutely not." And that little incident ruffled a lot of feathers. I think he was going to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and really clean house at DOD. And back then, the black ops and everything with DOD and CIA were really hand in hand. And yeah, so I do believe it is a conspiracy. I do believe that there was more. And conspiracy requires more than one person planning to do something, an illegal act. And I do not think that this was hatched in Lee Harvey Oswald's head alone. I really don't believe that. I do know he was a good shot, though. Those Marines, they're good shots.
Yeah, and I mean whether he did it himself or somebody else, I think Josh is onto something with the what you're going to find is JFK made a lot of enemies in the U.S. government. Kind of sounds like somebody else, right? And what you find out is when you make those kind of enemies, there's going to be a lot of chatter about how people don't like you and what they're going to do to end your career. Uh, you know, destroy your political career or what have you. And so I think I want to believe. Well, history says otherwise. I think there's a lot of chatter that ends up coming out because I think they say like 88% of the documents were made public or released to the National Archives, and then there's another 12% that are still classified, and then there's still, even though that totals 100% of those 12%, I think some of them were actually already illegally destroyed. At least from what I've read on like ABC or CBS News or whatever. So I think at the end of the day, what you find out is that there's probably a lot of official government chatter that people just were not a fan of JFK, and maybe some talks of how to remove that guy. Oswald's plan, I don't know. I mean, who
Them
knows whether.
documents were in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, brother. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that all just kind of like went away, huh?
Yeah, it did.
Well, and that. Speaking of conspiracy, so that brings us to CBS's Catherine Herridge, which I actually like her. Like I actually like kind of respect her. She does some pretty straightforward reporting and this and that. But let me ask you, I'll throw it over to you, Josh. So 2 years later, over 2 years, Catherine Herridge, who's a well-respected journalist, I don't think you can say she's left or right. She's pretty straight down the middle, at least from everything that I've seen her report. She's been on Fox News, CBS. She's kind of covered the spectrum. Um, 2 years later, they decide to run a story on a Hunter Biden laptop, and now they say, well, it's real. And what's crazy though is then she comes out and says, well, we verified the contents of the hard drive, but we have no direct evidence of Joe Biden's involvement in any of the business dealings. Followed up by, and this is from her, 10, quote, 10 held by H for the big guy. So I guess, I'll throw it out there for your general consumption, but like, what's the whole point? Like, we reported on this. I say we reported. We talked about this for 2 years, as well as a lot of other media outlets, just none of the big ones. So why all of a sudden now? Like all of a sudden now is CBS and Catherine Herridge? It's like, hey, breaking story.
Because the midterms are over, and they know that I think they know that Biden needs to go. Like Biden needs to. They need a new 2024 nominee. I don't think they can, even though it wasn't the red wave, right, and all of that, and mail-in voting, definitely helped them. I think that they're looking at 2024 and saying, hey, we got to change course here, and Biden's not the nominee for 2024. Because you notice they're saying the laptop is real now, finally, right? After 2 years. After 2 years, they're finally saying the laptop's real. But the stuff inside the laptop we just can't confirm. You're like, what? What? Like it doesn't even make sense. The laptop is real.
We're confirming that the laptop is physically a laptop. That's
right.
what we're confirming.
Yes. Right. Yes, the computer store guy, got a laptop that is actually a laptop. It's not Russian disinformation, even after all of these former heads of Intel and everything signed off on it, saying that it was Russian propaganda. And again, it's another one of those like this is why people don't have faith in institutions. And but they're saying, well, the laptop's real, but we don't know the contents. We're still, we just don't know yet. And you're like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever, right? I mean, I got kicked off of Facebook for it, right? And so, and by the way, on a quick side note, Luke, man, I sent your mom a friend request, and she's like, this is some spam account. I need you to hit her up and be like, you need to accept that friend request. Anyway, so okay, side note on that, but it is truly insane. We reported on this, so I think what you're going to see probably in the next 3 to 4 months, you're going to start seeing the media, the big outlets, start to confirm those emails and they're going to start asking, okay, who is quote the big guy, right? Who is that? And because they don't want they know they cannot win with Joe Biden in 2024, even with mail-in ballots and stuff. That's what I think. Some people may have some different opinions on it, but the simple fact that people got deplatformed, like me, people had their lives ruined. Dude, people had their lives ruined. That guy who owned the store where Hunter dropped his laptop off at, that guy's had his life ruined over something that turns around and is like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, it was true, right? And so that just goes, again, that goes back to the credibility of institution. It goes back to the credibility of the media. What has the media gotten right in the last 3 years? Let's say, well, hell, not even 3 years, 6 years, right? What have they gotten right? Everything that they have come out and said has been debunked time and time again. Zero evidence for it.
Which
right?
Have you seen Elon Musk? Sorry to cut you off, but one of the best things is that ABC will put something out about Twitter or Elon, and he'll immediately he's like, yeah, he's like, you're wrong, and then they put up the little he's like, nope, this is false. It's like, dude,
yep. He'd be like, nope, incorrect. No, but it's you go back and you take a look, whether it's the Covington story of Nick Salmon, at the Lincoln Memorial, that guy, obviously Kyle Rittenhouse, the Trump PP tape, like all this stuff has been debunked, right? But the left continues to take those things and they run with it, and they're like, oh, this is all Russian disinformation, and now they're coming back and they're like, oh yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's
getting
real.
to and I think. Bring it back kind of to Elon Musk, which that's hilarious, by the way, what Roger brought up, and the fact that he called out the National Defamation, whatever it is, National Defamation League or whatever it is. They said something about Elon Musk. He goes, "Stop defaming me." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But his whole thing, and people have been making this point quite a bit, is like on an open platform with minimal algorithms is better. Like journalists are saying this, like Matt Taibbi, Glenn Greenwald are saying, the parsing out of news stories from 100 different low-level journalists is better journalism than you're getting from CBS, MSNBC, Fox News. It's just better journalism.
100%.
For example, but the problem is, it kind of goes back to what Roger was saying. It's on the user to parse it out. You have to be objective when looking at stories. So if you're in the right or left-wing echo chamber, you're not doing yourself any favors. And it's getting to all these news stories that Josh outlined right there. If it's getting to a dangerous level right now, and what I mean by that is the news story about the missile hitting Poland. Boy, the media jumped on that, and we're a Russian missile. It started out Russian missile hits inside Poland, and I was like, oh, what's this? It's a matter of time. We all three said it's a matter of time before there's a mistake, right? And that's what we worry about. And I'll call out Josh right now. He just typed in, we told people over and over, it's on you to do the due diligence. When looking at all these news stories, if you see something from Fox, you're like, wow, that's an awesome story. Well, cross-check that with something else. Roger's really good at that. But that missile hitting Poland, it was like, oh crap. And then before you know it, within an hour, the story had changed to Russian-made missile hits Poland. I'm like, okay. Okay, now I know what this is. This is Ukraine. It was a Ukrainian missile. Accidentally, I think it was a surface to air that fell into Poland and ended up killing 2 farmers. But boy, I mean, these journalists jumped all over it. People were getting worked up, and because of a false news story where you just didn't wait to find out what happened, Juicy Smollier, or the news found outside the Barack Obama library. Did y'all hear about that? Yeah, that went away too. That was BS. Yeah. The noose and Bubba Wallace's, whatever trailer. So I'm just saying that Glenn Greenwald's point with the Poland missile story is, people were on the ground taking pictures of the actual missile, bits of it. And people on Twitter who, there's some weapons experts on Twitter. There's a lot of smart people on Twitter, not as many as there are dumb people, but we're saying, well, this is a surface to air missile, this part right here. And they put it up against, a fully, a missile that hadn't exploded yet. And they're like, this is a surface to air missile. It's a Strela, whatever it is. And that's journalism by the public. So you're getting, whereas CBS or whoever was reporting on it initially, they're going to run with it was Russia and get us into an Article 5 hot war over there. It's just a dangerous time, man. And we've said over and over, Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, some of these other folks are not big Tim Pool fans, but even he is, somewhat of a better journalist than your mainstream media. So I've prattled on and on. Roger, you were nodding your head. Anything to add on that?
No, so I think going back to what you were saying, a lot of times just following, like I like Twitter because of the independent journalists that would be considered low level, maybe blue collar journalists, because they just report facts, a lot of them. With the missile thing, it should have just been, hey, missile hits Poland. And at the time that it happened, that's pretty much the story, unless you have some further details. Now, obviously, flesh that out, and as time goes on, you collect evidence and you see more data, whatever, you put that stuff out there. But they have a narrative that they want to push, and then they also have an agenda. So you have a narrative, and then they have the agenda where they want to be the breaker of the story. Well, that's great if you have all the facts and if you have all the details, but a lot of times they don't. Understandably so, they don't. So hey, just put the info that you have out there, fact based. Let the readers digest that, and then as more information comes out, you push that. But then going back to what Josh was saying with the whole Hunter Biden laptop, they have a narrative that they got to push, and they have an agenda. And I would agree with Josh with the laptop that, hey, look, they realize that Biden does not need to be their candidate. They've got to find a way to push him out, and the way to push him out is you make some connection here that makes it so that he makes the decision not to run because of his family ties and his connections with China and Ukraine or whatever else. So, it also brings me to, you touched on this a little bit. So I thought the whole Twitter shadow banning thing was like a joke. Like I didn't take it seriously. Like I was like, because every time you would see people on Twitter like, oh, I'm being shadow banned, reply if you see this or whatever. And I'm like, this is just some troll that's trying to get likes and trying to get people to respond and try to think, no, we haven't. And I'm going to touch that next. But, just trying to get people to follow them or whatever. I was like, it's a joke. So anyway, I was on there the other day and somebody posted something and like, oh, I'm finally not shadow banned anymore. And you can check your status here. So I go in, I type my stuff in. Man, I'm being shadow banned. I was like, I thought this stuff was made up. I'm like, these people are just trolls. He's trying to get followers. And I type it in there and I'm like, so there's basically, and I forget off the top of my head, there's like 4 different criteria that they ban you, or categories that they ban you. And, or at least push your information down. So of the 4, I'm banned on like 2 of them. So there's like search suggestions and quality of posts. So basically, if anybody searches something, my posts don't come up at the top of the list. They do come up, but they don't come up at the top of the list. And then relevancy of my posts. So if you go in and read a certain thread, they will actually push my replies down farther because it doesn't meet their criteria or their algorithm or whatever. So that just makes me wonder, because I don't say anything too. I mean, Josh is 10 times worse than I am. Clearly, he's already been banned on Facebook, but I don't really put anything too crazy out there. I'm pretty middle of the road, and a lot of my tweets are just like, hey, show me the facts, right? And I guess for asking that stuff, they don't like it, so it pushes me down. But I want to kick it over to Josh because we'll bring this up. So Trump announced that he was running for president. I got to give Lucas kudos. One, I've said it probably 1,000 times. I did not think Trump was going to run for president. I firmly believe that he was enjoying what he's doing now. He's got a lot more freedom of movement. Luke called it out, and I think a couple months ago, he's like, nope, he's going to announce around this time, and it happened. So I'll give him kudos for that bit of information. My question to you, Josh, is, and this was thrown to me by one of our listeners. He was like, hey, I think Trump's going to announce that he's running because he may be running into some serious legal issues. Because going back to what Luke's talked about before, government, unlimited resources, they're going to find you did something wrong. And so the earlier he announces and he becomes a presidential candidate, the harder it is to go after him. Now, they're still opening up probes and this and that, but to actually indict him and take any formal legal or criminal actions, it becomes more difficult. So, Josh, do you think there's any truth to that? Or do you think he just announced because, he fully intends to run and he's starting his campaign early?
Okay. So one, to put a cherry on the top of the, the whole narratives and stories and debunking and everything. How's Paul Pelosi doing these days?
Yeah, where's the video cam from all that stuff, right? They've only released like what, a couple seconds of it? Like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah. Well, after the midterm elections were over, his Grinder date gone bad story went away, right? So anyway,
as has kind of the Colorado shooting. Kind of. No one really talking about that
dude.
anymore.
As soon as that guy came out as non-binary, they were like, "Whoa, damn!" And so, at first, and Roger's correct. I am a lot worse. And to Luke's point, I've tried to put more of my comments and stuff that I know, is not a consensus here on the Cup on my personal Twitter account. I've tried to stop, tweeting, things that these two might not agree with from the C3 account. That way, because it eventually it'll put us in a bad spot because somebody's going to call us on something, and then we're going to have to. Well, no, he was tweeting that, and it just it looks ridiculous. Anyway, so the so the Trump thing, okay, he may may have announced to try and skirt around any potential legal issues he may be facing. But like you said, though, the Mar-a-Lago story went away with the classified and stuff like that because all you needed to realize was the narrative kept changing on that. First, it was highly classified information, and then oh my god, it was nuclear codes, and then it was dated information, and then it was then we saw just a bunch of cover sheets, not actual information. When in the past they've actually said specifically what kind of information it was, right? And we all know the nuclear codes, like you just can't take the current nuclear codes and walk
It's a
out with
4-digit passcode that he took with him to Mar-a-Lago.
exactly, right? So that's that's kind of gone away for the most part. They did call a special counsel, but when you go back and you look at the special counsel, the person who's running it, you go back and look at their history, they're a big Dem supporter, big Dem donor and everything. So he may have done that to to skirt around any potential legal issues. But I'm not going to give him the benefit of that doubt, honestly. Trump announced he was running because he said on that day, because he said he was going to do it, and because Trump's ego, it will not allow him not to run. No, it's a double negative, but he's just that's that. He made up his mind that he was running long before the Mar-a-Lago raid, long before the civil court case out of New York. He made up his mind that he was doing that before those were even a thing, because he's Trump, and that's my take on it.
So do you think he changes his strategy? Because he can't continue to run the same strategy that he did.
No. But how is he going to change his strategy? His strategy is what got him elected in 2016.
Well, his last speech that he gave, right, that was very measured and probably the best speech that I've heard him give. And from that point to now, I haven't heard of any cook-offs that you would typically hear from Trump. Now, it's early, but
well, I mean, you heard it was on Twitter, I think yesterday, that Trump was yelling at somebody, in his office at Mar-a-Lago, like he was cooking off on them, about something. They tried to give him some advice, and he went crazy. Now, again, this is one person, this is one news outlet on Twitter, and it's so automatically like it doesn't mean anything, right? To me, that's just old man yelling at clouds. Like it doesn't mean anything until I see video of it. At this point, I want to see video of it, and I want to see raw, unedited video, from beginning to end. But I don't think he can change his strategy. Yeah, he may have gave one measured speech, but that dude, Trump did not change Trump because he gave one measured speech. He's still Trump. And the strategy that got him elected in 2016 is going to be the strategy that he sticks with because, dude, you just, no. I don't buy that he's a new person and a change candidate, new strategy at all. I don't buy that for a second.
In all transparency right now, I think in the Cup, I think I can speak for Josh and Roger. Well, maybe not Roger, but I don't hate Trump, but I'm not on the Trump train, if that makes any sense. I think Trump was the right man for the job at that time, but I personally believe if he runs, I just don't think he'll win. So I don't think he's the best candidate. I don't know if Roger agrees with me or not. I think Josh does agree with me. Kind of Team DeSantis right now. But back to Trump, I was having this discussion with Herschel Jericho over Thanksgiving, and I was like, Trump. I told him, I was like, I think it's kind of a foolish move on his part to get in a contract with Truth Social because according to what I'm reading, the reason he's not tweeting is because he's under contract with Truth Social and he can't get on another social media platform. Now, if that's the case, I think that's kind of a foolish thing on his part. But my old Herschel Jericho is saying that could be part of his calculus. It wouldn't. And I'm like, you know what? That's right. He's pretty good at those kind of moves. He's pretty measured, and he's a branding genius. He is a branding genius because worst case scenario, running for president, he's still building his brand. The Trump name is his brand. So strategy is a good question, Roger. I agree with Josh. I don't think it's gonna be tough if he rebrands himself, like rebrands the strategy. I don't know. I don't know if he's capable of doing that. His speech kind of showed he is. Give him that. But I think it'll be similar to what it was. Josh says no way. But what's going to be interesting is that when the daggers start coming out, because in my opinion, I think that if he just goes, all in on insulting DeSantis, DeSanctimonious or whatever he called him, I think that's a bad move. And I think think back at 2016. That's exactly what he did, man. Little Marco, Lion Ted. I mean, so it is entertaining. Whatever it is, I hope he continues to be entertaining because I don't hate the guy. I think he's hilarious. Inject a little chaos. I love it. I love the chaos. One thing about Trump that I want to mention is when Elon Musk brought him back on. I don't think I'm going to go into how Elon Musk did that. He basically put up a poll on Twitter, yes or no. What the people want, the people get. The people have spoken, and he got 57%, and Elon Musk brought him right back on to Twitter. I think he would have done it anyway. I think he was just trying to prove a point. And Elon Musk, that is. When Trump came on Twitter, I estimated, because I was refreshing to see how many followers he was gaining, I was estimating he was getting anywhere from 10 to 20,000 follows per second. He went from a shutdown account with basically 0 followers to 87.7 million followers in a matter of hours. When I say hours, in a couple of days, 87.7 million. I think that is absolutely amazing. And whether you like Trump or hate him, that's a news story that needs to be covered. If that was he broke the internet more than Kim Kardashian did when she showed her bare ass on Twitter. Remember that? Didn't get anywhere. Wasn't a phenomenon anywhere close to this. And this is where the media goes wrong, man, is they're not covering it. They've got to understand that this is an important thing. If you truly are scared of Trump, you need to acknowledge that this actually happened, because that's a crazy internet phenomenon. I got you, Josh. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's why Trump is he's an agent of chaos, and that is why people were so drawn to him in 2016, because he gave no quarter to the left or the right. If he changes that and he comes out and he's not that agent of chaos, you're just another politician.
Yeah, and which he probably at the root of it, he probably is now. He's gotten that taste of the politics. He's made those connections, and he's no longer an agent of chaos. Maybe, I don't know. Roger probably totally disagrees. He's just chomping at the bit. But and I was saying, any journalist worth their salt wants Trump on Twitter tweeting, especially if they hate him. Man, that's ratings. That's good stuff. That's why he got 87 points. I guarantee you half of those hate Trump. Hate him. Just hate him. But people want to see what he says. People, and I was, for a while, I was like, man, what's he going to tweet? What's going to be his first tweet? And he hasn't tweeted yet. I mean, it's just, everybody's waiting. So maybe old Herschel Jericho's right. Just he's just drawing it out. I just hope his first tweet is something like Kofifi. Something that makes no sense whatsoever.
He needs to tweet like at C3. I mean, you figure you're calculating that he's getting 20. He's getting 20,000 new followers a second. We're averaging about one new follower every 10 months. So
people are coming to him, asking him, say, we will pay you this much if your first tweet is this. Because imagine, dude, change your life. So Roger, set us straight on Trump.
No, I think Josh mentioned a key fact of all this, or how it turns out. So one, I don't think Trump changed as a person, obviously, but I think that he's got to realize that his strategy's got to change, and not so much on the little Marco and this and that, because I think people find that entertaining, and I do like the daggers. I don't want to hear any more about the 2020 election. Like, I'm done hearing that. There are. Do I think there was some voter fraud and irregularities? And I think any reasonable person can look and say yes. Okay, but hey, man, that's 2 years ago. That's done. You got to move forward, and I don't want to hear about elections 2 years ago, 3 years ago when we're dealing with the election now. The part that concerns me with Trump running is I'm not sure about his electability, and Josh has hit this on the head several times, because I believe in his policies. Again, I don't think he's necessarily a great individual, a great person, but I like his policies, and I think that he's shown that they've been effective, especially during his 4-year term. This last midterm shows that, well, nobody really cares about how the economy is doing or the country or anything else, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. So it comes down to, is he likable and is he electable? And so I don't know that he makes any changes drastic enough to change or improve his electability. And at some point, you have to sit there, and I think the GOP's got a problem, because they're going to have to sit there and look. One, you cannot have this guy run as an independent, right? That can't happen. You're going to lose, no matter who runs on the left side. But as time goes on, if it shows over the next year that his electability has not improved or it's gone down, what do you do as the GOP? I think it puts them in a very tough bind. They're already struggling now because you didn't have the red wave. And again, we talked a little bit about this in the last episode. There's a lot of folks to blame. One thing I am happy to report is that here in Arizona, they are done counting votes. They finally finished counting the votes. Now they got to canvass and they got to get a certify. And I think there's 3 counties here that are actually holding out on certifying votes. And I'm not sure that there was enough that made a difference one way or another as far as the candidates. I'm not sure that you find 25 or 30,000 votes out there, or whatever the final number was. But man, you're finding there's just a lot of irregularities that went on. And the county is not being very transparent about it. There's some hidden recordings that are coming out. And it's just, again, it's not like you're a conspiracy theory or, pusher or an election denier. But again, if we're wrong, shed some light on it, right? Shed some light. Here are the facts. This is what happened, yada, yada, yada. To me, though, just going back to the, hey, we took votes that didn't fit in the box and put them in a trash bag and tied them up with a zip tie, like, that doesn't cut it for me. Now, do I think the state of Arizona goes and does a complete revote and this and that? I don't think that happens either. I think you got Kerry Lake pushing for that. I think it's a losing battle, but it just goes back nationwide that, hey, man, you got to shed some light on this stuff, or you're going to have conspiracies out there, and then you're going to have those of us that don't necessarily buy into conspiracies, but hey, I just want to know what the truth is. All right, shed some light on it. I want to know what the truth is. I want to know what the facts are. So, Josh, I'll throw this to you for my, that was kind of like my last piece, but I'm just kind of curious on, is there anything he can do to improve his electability over the next 12 months? And if he can't, then what does the GOP do in response?
So I think the first thing that he can do to improve his electability is continue to be measured like he was in that speech that he gave, right? If he is truly, going to change tack here, I personally, I don't think he has it in him. He can do it for a speech. He can do it for, one, 30-minute session, but to be able to out there on the campaign trail, because if you go back and you look at all the rallies that he did, in 2016 and 2020, there's no way he can maintain that, right? Because that's not what people want to see from him. And so that would probably be the biggest thing that he can change in his electability. That, and like you said, stop talking about 2020. Um, and so I now completely forgot your second question to that. What was it?
So if his electability doesn't improve, what does the GOP do?
Oh, well, I think you're going to have those in the GOP who are going to be, they're going to be on the Trump train, regardless. And if it doesn't change his electability, you're going to see the GOP, they're going to attack toward whoever else is running. And I think Ron DeSantis has to. I think Ron DeSantis, his time is now. Some people are like, oh, well, he can wait until 2028. You know how long 6 years is in politics? It's an eternity, right? He's a senator. He's been a governor. He's been an incredibly effective and successful governor. His time is now. I think if Ron DeSantis bypasses 2024, I think he's hit tracer burnout. In 2028, so a wash.
Well,
For
too
him.
much can go wrong, right? I mean, he's sitting, he's riding on cloud 9 right now. So the only place you can do is go down.
Exactly. I think his time is now. If he wants to do it, I hope he does. And I think you'll see if Trump doesn't become electable, I think you'll see the GOP embrace DeSantis or somebody along in that vein that's going to run, and they're just gonna Bernie Trump. It'll be the GOP that there's gonna move to make him irrelevant. It's gonna split the base, and and then the Democrats will win in 2024 because the GOP can't help themselves but snatch defeat from the jaws of victory time again. So that's what I think, Luke.
Okay, Roger, I know you don't want to talk again, but what if they throw him under the bus like Josh is saying? And I don't know the legalities of this, if it's even possible, I'm not sure. But what if he sees the writing on the wall and pulls a Ross Perot? Are you still going to be on the Trump train at that point?
I think it depends on how it happens. A lot of it depends on. I mean, the GOP and the RNC. I mean, they can do whatever they want, right? They can say, "Hey, we're not having a primary. This is our candidate that we're running with." Just it brings up then, well, who do you pick? Because you've got a lot. Pompeo out there, but outside of DeSantis, I don't know that you have a very strong pool yet. Okay, now a lot of these folks aren't on the national level yet in the national scene, so a lot can happen. But I don't think you have anybody out there with the popularity and the record that DeSantis has right now. Going back to the only place he can go is down. Right now, he's riding high. So if you're the GOP, it would almost, and again, you hope that the camps are talking in the back, because what would make sense to me is you cut some deal with Trump, whatever it is, and you say, hey, we're throwing full support behind DeSantis, and that's what we do. If you try to hold an open primary, the GOP, you run the risk that Trump actually wins that, because there are still polls that show that he leads DeSantis overall by about 15 points. So then you run the risk that Trump does become your nominee, and then you're stuck with it, right? If let's say he doesn't change, he goes back to the way he was. Well, now you're on that horse, and you got to ride it across the finish line. If they try to undercut him, that's going to be the wrong move, because I think you're just going to support what his narrative is, right? It's me against the world. It's Tupac. Everybody hates me. The system, which a lot of it's proven to be true. I get it. But if they do that, then you further solidify what his narrative is, what his belief is, and you make him probably more of a populist candidate than what he is right now.
Yeah, good points. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens on that one. I'll tell you, if 6 years is an eternity in politics, Josh, Nancy Pelosi is officially older than God. I mean, good Lord.
100%. 100%.
Good grief. You know what? I got to get this out there. Darren's going to hate me. Darren hates me hating on anybody who is a Navy SEAL. Congratulations to Morgan Luttrell, though, on winning a seat in the House for Texas 8th District. Hopefully I see the writing on the wall with that. I think he and Crenshaw are going to be boys. And, I just hope Morgan Luttrell, keeps his head on his shoulders. I really do. But I believe he's Marcus's twin brother, Marcus Luttrell. But anyway, I am tired of Crenshaw whining on Twitter about the stuff he has the power to change or at least to try. Dude, you can write a bill. You can submit a bill. Stop whining on Twitter about drilling in Venezuela. Chevron, getting a permit to drill in Venezuela. Stop freaking whining. I'm tired of both sides with all these slogans that they use. Democracy is on the ballot. Hope and change. Just saying these empty things. McCarthy is going to read the Constitution on his first day. It's like, dude, hey, put a little iron in the glove, bro. Instead of just talking about it, go out and do something. Your words are so cheap. I'm tired of it, man. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Crenshaw. I've been sick of Crenshaw for a long time. But man, that dude just he's such a go off on him for hours. And the look on Josh's face is the feeling in my soul when I think about Dan Crenshaw. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, we're coming to a close here. There's a lot of stuff we want to talk about. We kind of apologize to our audience. Oh man, my family read me the riot act over Thanksgiving about us not recording enough. So it's like, God, no, I know we don't record enough, but we do. The three of us, we do work quite a bit, so it's tough to get on the same page. We're gonna, again, New Year's coming up, New Year's resolution, maybe to try to record more again. We knocked out 52 in that first year, man. We were smoking. We kind of slowed down a little bit after that.
Yeah, we had a lot of time at home from COVID that
That's
year.
Right.
Too.
That's right. Episode, I believe this is episode 103. If I'm
103, man,
counting up right. Yep. So we're doing it. We appreciate y'all listening. We try to give y'all shout outs. Eric, thanks for listening. You and your wife. He listens on road trips. I know Darren does too. He's constantly on my ass. Jesse, we call him out because he's always driving. So we appreciate y'all listening, really do. And if we don't shout you out, we're sorry. We mean to, but it takes a lot of time to shout out 7 listeners, so we can't do that every episode. So we do appreciate y'all listening. Hopefully we'll get another one out soon. And till then, keep Canteen cups full and tightly secured.